Hi, I'm Chuck Colson with this week's 2-Minute Warning. America's paper of record, the New York Times, has joined the growing chorus demanding that Christian candidates for public office affirm their respect for the separation of church and state. Now, that concept, by the way, was brought to our shores by Christians fleeing a state church in Europe. It's been a staple of American Christianity ever since. The latest salvo was fired by Bill Keller, retiring executive editor of the New York Times. As a fallen-away Catholic, he ought to know better. He also ought to get his facts straight. For example, he listed Rick Santorum, along with Rick Perry and Michelle Bachmann, as being affiliated with fervent subsets of evangelical Christianity. Fact is, Santorum is a devout Roman Catholic. The thrust of Keller's concerns center on whether a candidate should believe that his faith should inform his behavior and whether he has received divine instructions on how we should be governed. Now let me ask you, why would anyone separate his deepest convictions about reality from how he believes we should live our lives and be governed in society? Founding fathers had no problem with this. They wrote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights." This faith statement was agreed to by all of our founders, and frankly, I couldn't vote for a candidate who wouldn't affirm the words of the founding documents. Now, what does a Christian really believe about government? We know from the Old Testament it has two great purposes, preserving order and doing justice. And we know from the New Testament that we're to obey the law and be in submission to the magistrates. We are to be, as Augustine said, the best of citizens, because we do out of the love of God what others do only because they're required to. Now, folks, that doesn't really sound seditious to me. In his column, Keller poses 3 questions to the presidential candidates. Now, I'm not running for office, fortunately, but let me take a shot at them. First, Keller asked, do you agree with those religious leaders who say that America is a Christian nation or a Judeo-Christian nation? Well, my answer is no and yes. Ours is a free, open society, welcoming people of every faith. Again, that's what the Declaration says. All men are created equal. Christians, Jews, agnostics, fallen-away Catholics. But there was also a clear consensus, and here you'd have to say yes, because the consensus among the founders was that Judeo-Christian values would provide the moral underpinnings that allowed a free society to exist. Second question, would you have any hesitation about appointing a Muslim to the federal bench, or what about an atheist? Well, the answer is no, I wouldn't, so long, of course, as the candidate didn't propose Sharia law in American courts. After all, Martin Luther himself reportedly said he'd rather be governed by a competent Turk than by an incompetent Christian. We don't look at a person's faith, we look at their abilities, judgment, character, and the convictions they hold in terms of public policy. The third question is, what is your attitude towards the theory of evolution, and do you believe it should be taught in the public schools? Well, the fact is that it is a theory. It can explain changes within species, but there's no evidence of one species ever becoming another. And there's no way in which evolution can explain the beginning of life. So should it be taught? Sure, along with all the questions that have been raised about it, and along with other theories about origins. Well, that's how I'd answer those questions as an American Christian. How the candidates answer, of course, is up to them, but I wonder if the media really is interested or if they'd rather continue to squawk about the dangers of Christians in public office. Time will tell, and we'll be watching. I'm Chuck Colson. That's this week's 2-Minute Warning.